Final hour overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan now up on TSN2. The Jays game's over. If you simply looked at the box score after the game, you'd say, oh, Mets 6-2. Laid a beating on the Jays. What are you going to do? Move on to the next series. But if you were actually watching or tracking the game, you would know that Bowden Francis had a no-hitter going into the ninth inning. Again, the second time in 18 days. And obviously he didn't complete that. Francisco Lindor took him deep. First batter he faced in the ninth. I think he left the game right after that. And then the bullpen came out. The bullpen's so awful. And they not that he was going to get the win because at that point he leaves with a no decision. It's 1-1. But the offense couldn't pick him up. And the bullpen couldn't get the job done. And the Mets beat the Jays 6-2.
He's definitely on the radar, though. Like, he's gotten people's attention.
Yeah.
It has to be.
He won the Pitcher of the Month back in August. And or Pitcher of the Week, maybe it was, coming off. I think it was the month. I think it was the Pitcher of the Month. Yeah, because his stats are like, it's crazy, the numbers that he's putting up. And every time he's out there, this guy's doing something we don't see in baseball. He's going deep into games. Like, forget the ERA, forget the stats, forget the velocity on pitches, all that kind of stuff. This guy shows up, and you're like, he's got horse-like stuff every fifth day where he's pitching into the seventh and eighth, ninth inning all the time. Just really refreshing.
Well, it's nice if they have something there.
Yes.
If they've got something. If they got a player down on their hands there, what it looks like, I don't want to put the cart before the horse because you know what it's like near the end of the season, too. You know, somebody has a nice stretch, and then you look at him over a full season, but he looks like he's got all the tools.
Yeah, now, let's say Francis, I mean, at a minimum, you go into spring training next year thinking this guy's going to break camp as one of our 5 starters. Like, that's going to happen. Right. Even if he's the 5th starter, that's likely going to happen. But if you bring Gausman back, if Bassett's back, if Barrios is back, and then you got Francis, okay.
How do you get slotted after, like, the opening day starter is clearly your best guy, then after that?
Yeah, and once the ball gets rolling, it doesn't really matter anyway. I would assume Gausman will get the start opening day, although Barrios too, right? Like Barrios is a guy that they're committed to, and he got it this year. And
dude, you know what it's like. The guys want to win. The skip's got a pressure to win. If Bowden Francis seems like he's the guy, the best chance to win opening day, throw him out there.
That would be quite the story. Yeah, he'd have to have a great spring training.
Yes.
Look great and have people.
But as of right now, watching his body of work over the last month, that seems like it's a possibility.
Outstanding stuff.
Yeah, it's a possibility for that to happen or to be talked about.
For sure.
At least talked about is a positive.
For sure. Yeah, so the Mets took 2 of 3 here in Toronto, and Mets are chugging, man. That's a really cool story. They were such a mess last year. There was such a debacle early this season, and they're likely going to go to the playoffs. They got Atlanta chasing them, and yet they're on the heels of Arizona. They're chasing San Diego. They're not going to catch Philly. That Phillies team's just got an attitude all the time. Like, see, was it last night, I think, that Harper was going nuts?
Well, they hit Castellanos or something.
Yeah, and like square hit Castellanos. And
these guys are throwing
heat too, man.
98 miles an hour, and they're beaning people.
Yeah.
And they're never going up to bat. I think the guys have just about had enough of it.
Well, exactly. Whit Merrifield was talking on that, I think, earlier this week or over the weekend, where he's like, these guys are just throwing the ball so hard. And half the time they don't know where it's going, or if they do and they're hitting a guy, it's like, not 85 on the back. It's like 95 on the back.
Yeah.
And that hurts, man. And Harper was pissed last night.
I love the guys coming out of the bullpen. It's like you were running that whole distance
to do nothing.
Yeah.
But I guess that's part of the code, man. You better get your ass out there.
That's what it is. If everyone else is going, you got to go too.
Yeah.
And that you get the stragglers that are like, "Oh, we're going, man. Come on." Yeah. Like, all right, let me find my hat. Let me get out there.
Add on, he's eating sunflower seeds. He's sitting in a chair. Like,
hey, guys, what are we doing? Is everyone acting mad? Or
I would imagine it would be serious stuff. Like if you're one of the guys that are in the bullpen and you find a little nook to crawl under and you don't go out there and somebody caught you.
You have to go.
Yeah,
you're going.
Yeah, you have to go. Everyone's got to jump over the boards. All right, we got a big one on Thursday night. Dolphins, Bills. The Bills have won the AFC East 4 years in a row. Mike McDaniel, they've been a playoff team the last couple of years, Miami as well. McDaniel's got a totally new look, too. He's got the beard,
I think
the
he's
hair.
got a new hair.
The aviators. Do you think he went to Turkey? He's got a Turkish-type hairstyle?
His hair, it seems like he's got like a full, almost perm.
Yeah, he does have
got
a perm.
That's what he did.
He does have a perm.
But it was like really thin hair last year, and now it's like a thick fro almost.
He's good. He's got a good look going, man. And here's what McDaniel had to say about the Bills and them kind of reigning supreme in the AFC East for the last little while.
Yes. If you want to do anything in this league, generally, you can't skip over the much mandated step of winning your division. And there's one team that's won the division consecutive years that you could say that they by de facto own the division until somebody takes it from them. So that's just, I think it's pretty obvious, but I think it's also something that they have earned, and we would like to be in a situation where we earn the same thing, and there's one way to do that. You got to beat your division opponents.
I'm kind of souring on him a little bit. I used to think
I like Mike McDaniel.
I get it, but he seemed like this new age coach who had different ideas. He looked different. Now he looks like he sounded like a stoner there. Sorry.
Well, he's a vet, and he's.
You're telling me he didn't sound like he.
But I appreciate that answer. I agree with his answer. Like, you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. You got, like, they had the division, and they basically puked it away to the Bills last year. Here's Steve Wyche from NFL Network, chief national reporter. Steve, what do you make of those comments from Mike McDaniel?
Well, I mean, he's not lying. They're kind of cliches, but he understands that the Dolphins can't talk the talk until they beat the big dog, and that's been Buffalo. And they got the opportunity to start on Thursday. So I think that's kind of, he's trying to downplay any rivalry talk or anything like that, or his team, riding high and being the favorite, after their week one victory, whatever. And I think he's just saying, we haven't beaten Buffalo. They have been our daddy, and we've got to do something about it.
Steve, does it just come down to Tua? Like, you talk about the Dolphins with all the skill and the speed, like big games, cold games, they don't seem to have it. Does it just come down to Tua, or is it everybody?
No, I mean, it's not just him. It's never just really just one guy. I mean, he hasn't been a disaster. But you think about the end of last year when both their pass rushers were out with season-ending injuries. I mean, that impacts on how you call your defense, how you call your offense, and things like that. But yes, Tua also has a big part in it. He's got to continue to play well, but his pieces have to be healthy and things like that. But to just say it's all about him, I think is simplifying things a little bit too much. But he has got to continue to improve, and we'll see if the new slimmed-down version of him can finish out the season at a high level like the way he continues to start them.
Yeah, and with the Bills, there's been turnover at the wideout position, clearly. Last week, Arizona was in the driver's seat, and then the Bills found a way to really punch back in the second half. They hold on to a win. And the Josh Allen, like, you go watch the game tape from last week, that is Josh Allen in a nutshell. He fumbles on the first possession, and then he runs for two, he throws for one, he wins a ball game. Like, he's so entertaining to watch play. In terms of your viewpoint of the Bills and the likelihood that they will continue to own that division, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, so much now, we talk about a lot coming down to quarterback. I mean, a lot has been placed on Josh Allen. It always has been, but you look at the turnover at receiver, you look at some of the turnover on the coaching staff. I mean, him and Sean McDermott are kind of all that's left from just a couple of years ago when they were really rolling. And so he's amazing. He's a legit MVP type candidate. And I think if he plays at a high level this year without Stephon Diggs, without Gabe Davis, without some of those pieces, he's going to be thought of as, wow, he's really done even more heavy lifting than he's already done. But in terms of winning the division, it's both sides of the ball. We've seen some of the veteran players they let go on the offensive line, the secondary, things like that. All of that has to come together because I do think Miami has gotten stronger in some areas. We know the Jets, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, they're going to be a difficult out week in, week out as well. So I think the challenge has gotten a little bit tougher but Buffalo is still the team to beat. And you talked about how Josh Allen, typical Josh Allen, he struggles or makes mistakes earlier in the games and finds ways to win, right? That's what championship teams do. Their kryptonite's been the Kansas City Chiefs, and now they've got to find a way to get by the Chiefs. But I do think winning the division title has gotten a step tougher this season than it has been the past couple.
We were referencing Matt LaFleur's the Packers, and he has not ruled out Jordan Love to play this week against Indianapolis, which is nice that he hasn't ruled it out. I don't know if the doctors are willing to do the same thing or say the same thing. But when he left Brazil, it was thought of as maybe it's a season-ending injury. They lucked out. It wasn't. But once they landed and they went through the MRI, it was believed to be at least a few weeks where he'd probably be out of the lineup. What do you make of LaFleur's commentary there when it comes to Love and his status? And are you buying the idea that Jordan Love could play against Indy this week?
It would be real tough. It would be super tough with that type of injury. Them coming back after a long travel and everything like that. I would be stunned if Malik Willis does not start this game. When you look at what they did last year, even when Jordan Love was a starter and they struggled early and then rallied on the back 2/3 of the season to get into the playoffs. So I think they'll be wise in looking more long-term when it comes to Jordan Love's health instead of maybe putting him back out there and hoping he can manage it week to week.
The term load management was effectively created in Toronto. It revolved around Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi was load managed throughout the season, and it worked out beautifully with the Raptors. They ended up winning the NBA championship that year. I'm not sure if it can apply to the NFL with injury reports, with a 53-man roster, with the salary cap being what it is. But how would you describe the way you think the Niners are going to handle Christian McCaffrey, at least early into the season and potentially throughout the year, considering there's some anxiety hanging over him and that team when it comes to the injury that continues to linger?
Yeah, like we were just talking about, I think they'd rather have him late than now, and you saw how they were just fine without him in week one. They ask an awful lot of him. He touches the ball an awful lot. And I think if they get that out of him for 13 or 14 games at a 17, they'll take it. The hard part, and this is one thing I think that is overlooked by so many fans and we in the media, it kills players, who only have 17 of these not to play. Like you ask any player who's got any type of injury in the NFL, they want to be out on the field. It is not about load management. When you've got 82 games or 162, you're like, okay, I'm cool taking a couple of days off on back-to-backs or whatever. You only get one a week in the NFL. And to miss a game is really, really tough on players, mentally and physically. So even though we kind of sit here and talk, lightheartedly about, they can miss a couple games and they'll get them back and they'll be great. It kills those players not to be out there.
You just mentioned San Fran. They took care the other day. Where do you think the Jets fan base, we're already seeing NFL fandom panicking. Everyone's fired up about the season. Panic ensues directly after. Where do you think the Jets fan base should be? There was so much expectation. Rodgers is healthy. They go in. They did not look good against San Fran. They got handled. Where do you think that fan base should be? Because now it seems to be panicky. What are we in for again?
Oh, what? Jets fans panicky? Fatalistic?
Yeah.
No way.
Oh, yeah. It's happening, Steve.
Look, they got to be patient. The team had
that's
to
a
travel.
tough word for that fan base.
Yeah, of course. It is. No fan base is patient, right? No fan base is like, okay, we're cool with that. But week one is always the biggest non-truth teller. We're going to have people who came out and look great in week one, and their teams are going to win 6 games, right? We're going to have teams that didn't look great. They're going to end up making the playoffs. So let this settle in. Aaron Rodgers played his first game in a year, and for the most part, I thought he looked good. He played like 35 plays. The San Francisco 49ers kept the ball away from the Jets. And if you're going to be upset about anything, get upset about the play of the defense. You got run all over by Jordan Mason, and Brock Purdy didn't face any pressure all day. It could have been a lot worse. They were kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. It could have been a lot worse. But I think offensively, when they were able to string together a couple first downs, they looked fine. Now they just got to get some consistency. They've got a few things to work through. So I think it will develop. Again, I understand, Jets fans, the first thing that creeps into their mind is doubt and cynicism, and it's well earned. But I think right now, just wait a couple weeks before, you go ahead and you start burning your Rodgers jerseys.
with Steve Wyche of the network. You can find Steve and others on The Insiders, which airs Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. on the NFL Network. All right, let's apply the same logic to the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson, Steve. Let's apply it to Deshaun and Cleveland because, man, did that contract get broken down from every possible angle this week. The guarantees, the dead cap if they ever decide to move off him. It was a disaster. He was awful. The Browns' offense was terrible. The Cowboys were great, to credit them. But look into the future for us here. Deshaun Watson and the Browns, how do you see this going?
This is, to me, no player in the NFL enters the season with more pressure on him because he hasn't been available. He's been hurt. Their offense, when he has played, has never looked fluid. And then the assets and the compensation they gave Houston to acquire Deshaun Watson, they parlayed those into guys like Will Anderson and Tank Dell, and then one of the best teams in the NFL. So, they have got to figure this out in terms of, okay, how does the offense look? Deshaun wants to play in the shotgun. We don't have Nick Chubb. How is this going to work? They were a playoff team last year without him, and this only adds to the pressure. They were a playoff team last year with Joe Flacco coming to the rescue. If he doesn't get them back to the playoffs, it is frightening to think what their next steps are. Because as you mentioned, if they try to get out of that contract, the salary cap misery that they're going to live in for a couple of years. Remember, they've adjusted this contract a couple times. So the salary cap, the dead cap misery, and having to find another quarterback, I mean, that is as fatalistic of a disaster of a move. I mean, literally, this could be like this year's, this era's Herschel Walker trade, where you're making the Houston Texans a potential Super Bowl contender while your team is spinning its wheels in purgatory for years.
Well, whose idea was it to bring it in? We were talking about it the other day. It was the owner that wanted the deal done, pushing for it, wasn't he?
Sure. But remember, he wasn't just competing against himself. There were other teams that were trying to get Deshaun Watson. New Orleans and Atlanta were also very much in on this. Mm-hmm. And then when they guaranteed that $230 million, that closed the deal. That was the killer. And remember, other owners looked at Jimmy Haslam like, you actually fully guaranteed a quarterback contract with the way these prices are going up. You have hurt us all. Now, Dak Prescott just signed guarantees of $231 million the other day, but that fully guaranteed deal was not received well by other owners, and now looks like it could be one of the worst risks a franchise is taking if Deshaun Watson does not pan out.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dak, like you said, $231 million fully guaranteed, where there was kind of a public dance. It was more focused on CeeDee Lamb and his contract. And then, Dak was in camp and was preparing for the season, and a lot of speculation, would this be it? Would he have to prove he can win in the playoffs? What happened here? Like, did you always anticipate this would be the case? Did something change? Did Jerry Jones see Trey Lance throw 5 picks in the preseason and say, I got to pay this guy? Like, how did it get to a point where there was a song and dance, and then all of a sudden Dak is the highest paid player in NFL history?
I think Jerry Jones realized how hard it is to find a quarterback. If you get rid of Dak, he's going to go be with the Raiders or whomever else next year, get paid, and then you don't have one. Right? That's a hard thing to do. Why would I go out and pay CeeDee Lamb all this money if I'm not going to keep his quarterback around long term? So I think all of those things factored in. It sounds like there were conversations all along the way, but Dak had all the leverage because he's got a no-trade clause. You can't franchise him again. He could go without any compensation. So he had all the leverage in the world. Jerry Jones, he could have played tough, but he decided Dak is the quarterback who's won here, who's kind of the face of the franchise. He's big in the community. Let's go ahead and sign him up long term.
All right. Well, we'll see how that plays out in Dallas. We always love tracking what's going on down in Dallas. And tracking the NFL Network. The Insiders, again, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. on NFL Network. He is Steve Wyche of the NFL Network. Great catching up with you, Steve. Thank you for doing this.
Appreciate you guys.
You got it. Steve Wyche of the NFL Network. Dak got himself paid and started well and got himself a win. And I think Dallas a good team. Like, Dallas projects to be a certainly a playoff team. Can they be a Super Bowl contending team? We'll see. A lot of that's going to depend on how Dak plays when you get to the dance.
Nobody ever worries about them in the regular season.
I know.
They're regular season heroes. That's what it is.
Did you see Jerry Jones' comment about the money?
What did he say?
He was. They were questioning him about some of the players' feelings being hurt with not having the deal done, and he said, "I've never seen somebody come back, or everybody always comes back from hurt feelings once they get paid."
Yes. That is a fact.
Yes.
Everyone can say bent out of shape, and then once they get paid, it's like, all right, I'm good. Like, Dak can't say anything. Dak's got to basically kiss the ring forever. Be like, thank you. You just gave me $231 million fully guaranteed.
Oh.
Like, that's the most fully guaranteed money in the history of the NFL. More so than Deshaun Watson.
Insane.
This Deshaun Watson situation, man, if you're looking for a train wreck, you got one in Cleveland. Because they gave up assets to get him, because of how good Houston is, because of how well Baker Mayfield's playing. Like, everything is going against
what about
Watson
how
and the
far they
Browns.
stuck their neck out taking a chance on what he was accused of
Exactly.
doing?
The red flags in particular, because you had a percentage of your fan base, I don't know how big, but a percentage that was, like, so pissed off you even got him. Didn't want him.
Right.
Like, didn't want anything to do with him. And then probably would have come back because kind of like Jerry Jones, the hurt feelings go away when you get paid. The hurt feelings go away when your team wins.
And if he shows up and he's dynamite right away, those people that weren't happy about it, they're now happy and they forget it.
Usually fans are fickle, and they'll be like, I still love the Browns, and he looks pretty good. I can get around. I can figure this out, or I can live with this. But it's gone the opposite way. Injured all the time. When he plays terribly. And all the fans that didn't want him, they've been vindicated effectively. They're like, I knew this was coming. Like, I didn't want anything to do with this guy. He's a distraction. And he looks like a distracted athlete or a guy who got all his money and just said, man, I'll bet you there was a part of him when everything was breaking loose at the start. He might have been thinking, I'm never going to play again. I'm going to lose everything. And not only is he playing, he's playing for the most guaranteed money of all time.
He looks like Rocky Balboa when he's running on the beach with Apollo Creed, and Adrian has to pull him aside and say, what is it?
Yeah.
And he finally just says, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Rocky says, I'm afraid. And Deshaun Watson needs Adrian to meet him on the beach and just say, what is it, man?
Yes.
Apollo yells at him, what's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you?
That has been on every weekend for months, and for some reason,
Noodles, that movie's been on every year for every Saturday for 20 years.
I watch them every week. Like, it was 1, and then it was 2, and like I'm not lying. Like, Steph came in the other day, she's like, "You're watching this thing again?" It was Rocky 2. I'm like fascinated with Rocky 2. I don't know why.
How quickly can you pick out which Rocky it is?
Oh, right away.
5 seconds?
Right
like you, like immediately, like within a second,
Yeah.
you know which one it is?
No.
1 and 2 get a little because Rocky's not super cut, right? Like, but 1 and 2, it probably you can figure it out where it is in the movie, if he's met Adrian or if he's still courting her,
right?
All of that, what Paulie looks like, you know. Mickey's got the old school earpiece, like that's his hearing aid. It's this hanging out of his ear, like
a lot of it's
classic.
the villain too, right? Like if you see, like if you're like, all right, there's Hulk Hogan. Okay, I know that one. If that's Ivan Drago, I know that. If that's Tommy Gunn, you know, I think I can figure that out.
Yeah.
Tommy Gunn and number 5 you could pick out immediately because Stallone's older. It's Tommy Gunn.
Yeah, but then there's one just called like Rocky Balboa or something.
But
like
that's a recent one. That's with him older. It's like a trainer or something, isn't it?
And then there's his son, and like I've lost kind of track. I've seen them all.
Gone too far. It's gone.
There's a lot. Well, and now there's
he owns
Apollo, or is it Creed? It's Creed.
It's Creed, yeah. Now I've seen them all, but I kind of lost interest in the last couple.
The Creed movie, the original one was a good movie. The original Creed movie was really good. Michael B. Jordan was really good in that.
Yeah, but then that I'm not sure the one where he was like the restaurant owner and he just walks around, lumbers around, and Paulie shows up and drinks from the bar. And
I don't know that one.
Paulie had a good gig, man. The uncle, the brother, Adrian's brother, just a pee tank that lives off of them. He's got nothing going on.
Great setup.
Great setup for Paulie.
Yeah, great setup for him. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel. Still to come later in the hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Heartbreak down at the Dome this afternoon. About the ninth inning. And not only did he not complete the no-hitter, he gave up a home run the first batter he faced in the ninth, and the Jays got pumped 6-2.
What would you rather? Getting Lindor going yard or your boy, who's the umpire?
Angel Hernandez?
No,
Hernandez?
was it Jimmy Joyce or who was the guy?
Jim Joyce.
Jimmy
Who-
Joyce.
I think it was Jim Joyce.
Who
Is that
blew
right?
the call at first base?
It was Joyce for sure. I think it was Jim Joyce. That sounds right. I think it was Jim Joyce with the mustache.
Or would you would you rather just a guy go yard or like a dribbler through short or a blown call by an ump?
I guess just get it over with.
Yeah, just a homer. Just
Yeah, I guess get it over with. You know, because that like Lindor, obviously he hung up. I haven't seen it. We've been on the air, but he threw a pitch that Lindor must have said thank you.
Yeah.
You know, like it was a
saw
mistake. Have you seen it? No, I haven't seen it
saw
yet.
Online.
Like a dribbler, those are heartbreaking when a guy just like throws his bat at
The
it.
worst
and
would be
finds
if
a
it was
way.
an error by somebody, like a
that-
slow roller, like
Yeah.
a Billy Buckner move, and you'd hate the guy for life.
Well, that would still count though. Like if it's an error, it would still count. But like sometimes if it's like a speculative play, like was it an error? Was it not? Should it count? Like that can put a little bit of a different shine on it too.
The Jim Joyce one, like that.
We have to. Is that the guy's name, Jimmy
I'm
Joyce?
pretty sure it was Jim Joyce.
He's got a big
Remember how-
giant handlebar mustache.
Yes.
He was so with
Joyce.
conviction.
Oh, dude, he
with
was
conviction,
so
he
happy
just
to
called
say
him
safe. Like he almost threw his shoulders out. Like he literally was like, it was his arms were backwards. He was like basically.
But why was he so fired up? Like
I
you
don't
would
know.
think
He was
under
so
any
horny.
circumstances, I'm just calling this guy out.
Yeah.
I don't even care if it's so flagrant on the other side. The guy's having
Yeah.
a perfect game. And
It was
we weren't
so
talking
horny.
about a no-hitter. I believe it was perfect.
It was a perfect game. It was the 27th batter of the game. It was a perfect game, Armando Galarraga. And I'll say this, like more of the focus was on Joyce and him being a hero for some reason and ruining the perfect game. There's no other way to describe it. He basically took a perfect game and did something obscene with it and said flicked it and said that's gone. I'm not allowing this to happen. And Armando Galarraga would have been within his he would have been totally justified
sucker him
to
on the
go over
spot.
there and say we are fighting right here on the spot.
Yes.
Like losing his mind. George Brett styles.
George Brett. Yeah.
George
Oh,
Brett
that's
out of the
right.
bullpen times a million. And he handled
Like
it with
if you were
such class.
Galarraga, that's his last name, right? Galarraga.
Armando Galarraga.
If you were looking at it and you saw the out call and the play at first, and then you looked over at the handlebar and he said safe,
And
you would want to throw fists.
yes, you would lose your mind. And he handled it with such immense grace and class. Like it was incredible. He just kind of chuckled. Like because
Yeah,
he knew
smiled.
it. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
kind of smiled and it was all he knew it. And like obviously the broadcast immediately went to the tape and they're like, Joyce, he's out by a foot or two.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a millimeter. It wasn't like his
No.
foot was kind of a millimeter off the bag in the Zapruder film. This guy was out by a mile.
And Jimmy Leland came out of the bullpen.
Threw
Was
his
it
dart
Jimmy
and just
Leland?
started
Oh,
running.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Detroit.
Yeah, it was Jimmy Leland who must have had a dart and just came flying out of there. It is something else.
Imagine
man.
being nose to nose with Jim Leland at the end of the game when he's had a pack of darts in the
7
dugout.
black coffees. My God. I would rather have my head tossed down a toilet bowl.
Yes, I'd say, you know what? I'm rescinding that call. He's out. You're right.
Yeah, just immediately as soon as he took a breath on your nose, he just went, he's out.
You're out. You're out. Forget that happened. I immediately rescind my decision. Jim
You're
Leland
right,
in your
though.
face.
His arms almost came out of the socket.
He was
is-
so horny to call safe.
Dude, it's just so
It's crazy,
disgusting. And
like-
there wasn't replay then, was it?
No, there wasn't replay. No, and that wasn't the reason replay eventually showed up, but it was certainly a turning point. You know, because you're stealing history. Like a no hitter, there's been a lot of no hitters. It's still an incredible accomplishment. But perfect game, there's been 23, 24 in the history of the game.
I think I read somewhere like couple weeks ago that they were talking about like fixing it and giving him the perfect game.
You can't exactly,
Which
but you can't
don't know
do
what
that.
that would
You
do
can't.
for his.
You couldn't go back.
It does nothing.
Can't you go back and
No, it does nothing.
revisionist history?
It does nothing.
Oh,
It's go ahead.
That's something that we should do. There should be 5 things we could choose in instant replay and go back and wonder if it changed history. The Kerry Fraser high stick would be one, right?
That would be one for sure, because the Leafs should have been on probably a 4-minute power play. Gretzky's not in a position to win the game. But it's different because it's not like this is more about a team was caught. Like the 2017 Dodgers are the best example. Houston cheated. We know they cheated. All right, you know what, Houston, you're not the World Series champs anymore. The Dodgers are. Would the Dodgers want that? They lost. They played the games and they lost. He didn't have the celebration. You know, it's the same thing with Galarraga is a little bit different because it would be record books and the game, you know, it got played. It did actually work out in a way that it should have been a perfect game. But the Dodgers, they played the Astros and they lost. You know, you can't go back and say, actually just pretend you won because the team was cheating. I mean, I don't think the athletes would want that.
No, I get that. I know in Calgary, the Game 6, that puck that seemed to get over the line there on
Martin Gelinas.
Bulin. Yeah, Marty Gelinas. Like
that's
you know,
one that's an example though. Like that puck, I think that puck was in, man. I think that puck was in. And were they up 3-2 in the series? Like would that have won the Stanley Cup
that night? It was 5 minutes left in the game. That was the go-ahead goal. They probably could have held on and won the cup, and they lost in Game 7 going back to Tampa.
Wow,
that was Game 6.
That's sick.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Well, it's everyone, like every organization has their. I mean, to a degree. You know, we were talking about it the other day. The Mount Rushmore when you say stuff in Toronto. In Calgary, all you say is it was in. Like that was it. Like that's what people say. I did that Kiprusoff speech last year and I referenced it and people started chanting and then I got off of it because I wanted to focus on Kipper. But people get worked up about it because they were and it was remember they on the other station they were talking about parallax angle. I think they were talking about it and all different types of how it was in. It was over the line.
It looked like it was in, man. It looked like it was in, and like Brett Hall, his foot was in the crease.
That's right.
Like that one's just so blatant. All year they were calling that no goal, and they just said screw it. Yeah. Like there is no explanation for that counting. But
that's true.
That's one where the Sabres, they look back on it, I'm sure, and so that could have been. I don't remember what game that was.
Yeah,
I think it was a Game 7
That's
winner.
like very simple stuff. It's like
I think it was Game 6.
you weren't allowed to have your foot in the crease and his foot in the crease. Like, how could they allow that? And Dallas did the right thing where they got everybody on the ice. They put the hats on. They threw their helmets off. And they kind of put them in a position where it was like, we can't tell them to get off the ice now.
Right, exactly.
But that's what should have happened.
It should have happened.
But they would have. They should have done that. Through the letter of the law.
Yes, it was no goal.
I think both of us were in the league at that time.
Yeah, you know how annoying that rule was? Like, you score a goal and a guy's, like, toenails in the crease and it was called off? That was a garbage couple years of hockey.
It was such a stupid
Dude,
idea.
it was a 2-1 New Jersey fest every night because you couldn't, like, anybody was near there, no goal.
I know. I was a recipient of a few called back where there were guys' toe or skate lace was in on the other side of the crease and I give up a muffin. And then they're like, it's called back. Like I told you guys that in Toronto, I gave up 2 goals that were called back against the Leafs. We won 6-4. It would have been 6-6, but we won 6-4. I think Wendell scored one, and I can't remember who else, but called back goals because there was somebody in the crease.
You're right.
So,
that would happen. Someone behind the goal on the other side of the play, completely irrelevant to the play. And they'd go to the tape and say that guy's got a toenail in on the other side of the post, but no goal.
Crazy
and just
stuff.
it's like no one thought it through. Like I understood the practice of it and why the whole thing was protecting the goalies and all that kind of stuff. But it's like no one thought that through, that this could turn into a significant issue. Like, I don't know, someone scoring a cup winner with his foot in the crease.
Yeah,
but it counts.
Man.
Brett Hall doesn't have to explain anything. Jimmy Joyce. Yeah, it wasn't a Jim. So to answer your question, what would I prefer? I'd prefer Lindor just takes it. Just hit a bomb, get me out of the game. I'm leaving. It's over. And that's effectively what happened today. Speaking of revisionist history, you guys want to hear DeMar DeRozan on First Take this morning?
Love to.
Yeah.
DeMar's doing the rounds. He's got a book coming out, and this is what he had to say about his time in Toronto, the trade, Kawhi, the championship season that he missed out on.
The kryptonite for the Toronto Raptors franchise at that particular moment in time was LeBron James, because y'all kept running into LeBron James. The year he arrived, LeBron James went to L.A. Right. So my attitude is, had DeMar DeRozan stayed there, he'd have been a champion with the Toronto Raptors. How do you feel about that once you hear something like that?
Yeah, and never, to discredit those guys. I mean, they won it. They deserved it.
Right.
I finally had got to a point to where, I was happy for them. But for sure, I definitely feel like that. The only person we couldn't beat was LeBron. That's just what it was. And I felt off the year we had before, we just needed one more piece to kind of push us over the top. And that piece came to be LeBron going to the West. And I didn't get an opportunity to see what would have happened. But the utmost confidence within myself, I have no doubt in my mind the same outcome would have happened.
Okay. What's he supposed to say? I guess my first reaction is, what's he going to say? I still would have kept losing. We would have lost. We were a flawed core. It wasn't going to work. I mean, of course he's going to say that, and he may even believe it. But I don't. I don't believe it, and I don't think any Raptor fan does. What Stephen A. said is accurate. LeBron, they ran into LeBron every single year. Every year in Miami, every year in Cleveland, and Kawhi did not have to do that. The DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry Raptors with Nick Nurse, right, instead of Dwayne Casey, that was an important change as well. Let's say they make the same Gasol trade and all that kind of stuff. Would have beat Orlando in the first round. I don't think they would have beat Philly in the second round. I don't believe they would have, because even with Kawhi, they needed a miraculous last-second shot in Game 7 to get past that Philly team. But let's say they find a way to do that. I don't believe they're beating Giannis and the Bucks in the conference final with DeMar DeRozan. Like, Kawhi Leonard was so imperative. They were down 0-2 to the Bucks. Then they won 4 straight. Without Kawhi, there was no way you put DeMar in there in place of Kawhi Leonard. They're beating that Bucks team.
Yeah.
Like, no chance.
The thing about it is he's teed up by Stephen A. Smith where what's he going to say? You know what? There's no way I would have won.
Exactly.
But I do think it's a crazy comment. Like, Masai's a pretty smart guy, and they picked him out as a guy that they needed to replace to get over the top, and that's exactly what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like you talk about, there's a word tossed around about athletes, that killer, that new phrase is like he's got the dog in him. They wanted to get Kawhi because he had it, and DeMar necessarily didn't have it.
Yeah.
And that's why they made the transaction.
That's right. And it allowed everyone to fit into their spot, including Kyle Lowry. Because when DeMar was there, Kyle was the man. And when Kawhi showed up, naturally, Kyle wasn't and couldn't be on a championship caliber team. And I love Kyle Lowry. I love the way he played as a Raptor. As the number one, you're not winning. You're not going to win. You needed the alpha dog, the main guy, and then everyone else filtered in appropriately.
Yeah.
And, Danny Green was part of that too. Danny Green came up. He started every game that year. Faded, like when in the finals against Golden State, it was pretty ugly for Danny. But he factored in pretty significantly as well. If DeMar's here, that guy's not there. Like, again, I don't blame DeMar. I think he's got to say it.
He didn't bring it up, though. He was teed up.
Exactly.
Maybe he asked Stephen A. Smith to ask the question. Who knows? But it seemed like Stephen A. was throwing him an absolute Coors Light slow pitch.
Yes. I don't believe Stephen A. believes that.
Yeah. Like, this book's coming out in 2024, and you had to ask that question. It's like, that's not even...
Well, and DeMar's, he's a really interesting guy. He's pretty open with where he's at, where he's been, his personal life. And, he's been pretty honest that, like, since he left Toronto, he just hasn't been able to find a consistent home. It didn't work in San Antonio. It didn't work in Chicago. Now he's in Sacramento. He's just kind of moving around the league. Like, he's kind of become a journeyman in a way.
Yeah, he's just become a guy.
Yeah, he's
had a good career.
He's a good player, really good player. But Toronto was where it popped for him. That's where he was the all-star. It was him and Kyle. It was, they were winning a lot of games, going to the playoffs. The city really embraced him. They loved him. He loved them. He loved the city. And that trade it changed everything for the franchise and for him.
I played that game, though. When you leave an organization and they win that first year you're gone, that's a kick, man. It is a wind-up, steel-toed boot in the junk.
Why, you have that, right?
Yeah, I played
sick.
10 years in Carolina, and the year I leave, it is like the double wind-up steel toe.
Yeah, that one will leave a mark.
Yeah.
Right in the
It
balls.
hurts. And even DeMar said, like, now I've gotten to the point where I'm happy for them. But it probably took 5 years. And even that, he might be not telling the full truth.
No.
Happy for like a couple guys, not happy for everyone. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel, still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, TSN 1050 wants to send you on a royal road trip to the President's Cup in Montreal. If you heard the keyword announced today on First Up, call us right now, 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. The first caller through with today's keyword qualifies to win the trip. You could win flight, accommodations, $500 spending cash, and 2 tickets to see the world's top players compete at Royal Montreal Golf Club. Full details at tsn1050.ca. There it is, 416-870-1050. What was the keyword heard this morning on First Up? First one in with that, you qualify or you could win the trip. Made you wait today. We've been doing it in the 5 p.m. hour a lot. We made you wait. Never know when it's coming, the cue to call. Never know. But we're going, man. I was talking with guys in the hall. Everyone's buzzing. Everyone's buzzing about being in Montreal, President's Cup. Got to hope for good weather. Really need some good weather breaking, right? I don't need it to be hot. Just be sunny.
Do you think there's any chance, like 10 o'clock Wednesday, they let us tee it on that course?
No chance.
No.
Why?
Because there's no pro-am. It's such a massive event with history and the players, and it's
What
more
if no
intimate.
one's practicing and they just say, you guys have at it, play 18 quick?
I guess it can't hurt to ask. Should we have
What do we
Doogie
call-
send an email? Maybe Doogie send an email to Royal Montreal and see if we can
Can
get
you
out
guys
there.
Play a goat track close to it or something?
I don't know. We want to play Royal Montreal, man. It's such a cool-looking course. I wouldn't be holding my breath on that. That's all I can tell you. But you never know. Anything's possible. We'll be there.
We'll put the ask in.
Yeah, we'll throw it out there. Why not? All right, today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Aaron Judge has not hit a home run in 14 games. 14. He's been stuck on 51 literally for weeks. That has to change at some point.
It's crazy.
I think he gets one tonight.
Dude, you said that 10
Yankee
days
Stadium.
ago in Texas.
I know that. Exactly, because he was back where he hit 62 last year. I'm like, he's going to do it. I was doing a SportsCenter hit after he hit 51. I was saying this guy's going to cruise to 60, 61, 62, and now he's stuck. And it's not looking good for him to chase down his own record. But Judge to hit a home run, Yankees money line tonight, paying plus 329. Kansas City in town. Kansas City's a good team. Really good team. They're
That
going to the
Bobby
playoffs.
Witt Jr. is a stud.
He's so good, Bobby Witt Jr. That kid is going to be a staple in the league for years. Like he's going to win the batting title in the American League. He hits for some power. He plays defense.
Hustles his rear.
Hustles,
end off.
young guy. They love him. Blue collar town, Kansas City. Unreal. Kansas City's got a good thing going. Like you get the Chiefs and now the
Dude, they
Royals are
won
back
80
in the
ball
playoffs.
games, man.
Yeah, pretty good. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. The first inning means as much as the ninth when you bet baseball on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 19 plus, physically located in Ontario. Now, the other end of that spectrum is the White Sox, who lost their 114th game last night, and that is the fastest it's ever happened in the history of Major League Baseball.
Dude, that's saying something, man.
Yeah.
I didn't think anyone would get worse than what Oakland's been doing the last couple of years.
Like there are some horrendous teams in Colorado is horrendous. Miami is horrendous. They have 21 more wins than the White Sox.